Hello from wherever that you are watching us. Welcome to another episode of In Conversation. My name is Bongani Mncube, and today I'm joined in studio by the head of School of Electrical Engineering, Prof. Nwulu. Prof. Nwulu, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Bongani. Thank you for having me.
We're blessed to have you actually electrified. Prof, can you kindly tell us a little bit about yourself?
Good morning once more, Bongani. And then, like I said, I'm very happy to be here. My name is Nnamdi Nwulu, the South African Switzerland Bilateral chairholder in blockchain technology at the University of Johannesburg. And I'm also a professor of sustainable cyber-physical engineering systems in the Department of Electrical and Electronic Engineering here at UJ. And I'm also acting as the head of School of Electrical Engineering at UJ. My research interests is principally in the realm of emerging technologies. Basically, a basket of them, blockchain technology, machine learning, prescriptive analytics, that's also known as mathematical optimization, leveraging all of these tools in the agri-food, energy, and water space.
Yes.
So in a nutshell, that's what I'm about, and that's what I do.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It is in a nutshell. And I was quite intrigued by the South African Swiss Bilateral Research Chair in blockchain technology. What are the goals and objectives of this partnership?
Well, thanks for that. The chair is an initiative of the South African and Switzerland government. And then the goal is to leverage on the transformative potential of blockchain technology to solve societal problems in South Africa and Switzerland, right? Of particular interest for us is the use of blockchain technology in supply chains. And then in our case, because you have various supply chains depending on the products, in our case, we are interested in the agri-food supply chain in South Africa, and our Swiss partners are interested in the medical supply chain, medical devices supply chain in Switzerland. So principally our goal, our job description, right, is to use blockchain technology to see how to mitigate or reduce inefficiencies in the agri-food and the medical devices supply chain in both South Africa and Switzerland. We also conduct research, research to inform the products that we develop, where we conduct research in these fields and other allied blockchain-related fields. And then our vision also is to build capacity too, right? And then we do so by supervising students, postgrad students, and then creating blockchain researchers. Recently, we had a boot camp, a 4-day boot camp at the Mill Park, Garden Court Mill Park Hotel, where we basically got together a cohort of students that were not necessarily skilled up in the use of the technology and taught them how to find their way with the technology. And then thirdly, we're also involved in evangelizing the technology with the industry. So we're involved in outreaches to, industries, right? Having lectures, guest speakers, basically to shed more light on the transformative potential of the technology and to pinpoint industry players to how they can deploy the technology to streamline their operations and introduce efficiency. So in a nutshell, again, that's essentially what we are about.
Yes. In layman's terms, Prof, please enlighten me. How would you define blockchain technology, just in simplicity?
Okay, so blockchain technology is not it's not as mystical as it sounds, right? So it's essentially a distributed ledger technology. It's a DLT. So I often say now that it's just a record keeping system. So from the word ledger. So if you know maybe your mom and pop shop or your spaza shop, typically they have a ledger where they record inventory, they record income, they record even those that are owing, they record all of those information on the ledger. So that's what a blockchain is, but it's a distributed ledger. So unlike those ledgers where it's centralized,
Yes.
you have just one individual that writes information on the ledger, that
Yes.
reads information from it, right? Blockchain is decentralized, it's distributed. You have different parties,
Yes.
perhaps spread across various geographical zones, right, that have access to read information from that ledger or write information into that ledger. So it's essentially a record-keeping system. Now, the distributed nature of the technology makes it difficult for one person, right, to write the narrative.
Yes.
Everybody, all the participants have a say about the true state of that ledger.
Yes.
Right. So it's something called a consensus algorithm, which you use to agree about the true state
Yes.
of the ledger, such that there is transparency.
Yes.
Right. So I often say now that there are three key terms that I use to simply define the technology, and that's DTI,
Okay.
not the Department of Trade and Industry now, but
Mine was there.
So the first is decentralization.
Okay.
Right, it's a ledger, but it's decentralized.
Yes.
And then it aids transparency. All the partners, all the decentralized partners can see the state of the ledger and agree
Yes.
to whatever records are kept there. And then it's immutable. By immutability, I mean now that even if there's an error,
Yes.
that of a record, there's an error with one of the records that's written on the blockchain, you can't delete it, right? You need to rewrite again the correct information. You can't delete it. So that's it's basically a transparent system
Yes.
that has immense advantages and potentials in Africa and other nations, especially where a lot of ill tribes when there is no transparency.
True,
Right.
true.
Think about various sectors, elections.
Yes.
Think about many instances.
Yes.
Blockchain technology has the potential to introduce transparency there, reduce inefficiencies, prevent fraud, and basically, make society better.
And elaborating on this definition that you've crystallized, how do we apply it on supply chain? What are the advantages of using blockchain technology in supply chain management?
Okay, so blockchain technology in supply chains is a game changer. We can introduce traceability in the supply chain.
Yes.
So by traceability, I mean now that both the suppliers or even the recipients along the supply chain, the wholesaler, the middleman, or even the consumer can track in real time where exactly, right, the product is, on the supply chain, right? This reduces or eliminates instances of, fraud. It helps in dispute resolution, right? It basically helps folks to be more aware of, where that product is at a specific point in time, and just gives the consumer confidence in the whole process.
Yes.
Right. It also, blockchain in the supply chain domain also has the added advantage of transparency. So, right, documents, customers, consumers, suppliers can see the various documents that in the blockchain that are required in the blockchain, or even the products, right? And now this basically proves provenance. So for instance, you have consumers that need to be sure where some of these products or some of these materials stem from.
Yes.
Right. You think about maybe folks that are into organic food, healthy eating, right? With all of the sustainability, the drive for sustainability, there is a need to see that some of the products are produced ethically, they are handled ethically, right? So to give customers that assurance or confidence, blockchain is very, very pivotal. So it introduces traceability, and then that has the added advantage of creating transparency in the system. Taking together, it boosts consumer confidence. The consumer is quite confident about what he or she is receiving, right? And then it has the knock-on effect, right, of increasing sales, trade increases because people are sure about what they're receiving from the supply chain.
in terms of the South African Swiss bilateral research, now you also spoke of the import and export of goods in South Africa and Switzerland in terms of agri-food and medical devices supply chain. So what would be the challenges and the opportunities presented in these sectors?
Okay, so I'll start with the agri-food space.
Yes.
Right. The agri-food space is very important, right? And blockchain can play a very pivotal role in the area of food safety, right? Because typically as food moves through the supply chain from farm to the fork,
Yes.
there are often instances of contamination,
Yes.
where pathogens, are introduced somewhere along the value chain, right? And then it has a knock-on effect. It makes people sick, right? And then it's often difficult to sometimes trace or identify where the contamination occurred. And also it's also often difficult to instigate recall efforts.
Yes.
Right. So now blockchain can be a game changer there because you're able to digitalize most of those processes, and then you have all of those records. Right. So in the event that there is a contamination, right, then you're able to identify where did it occur, how to recall the products much more quicker, right? And then food safety is enhanced for the population.
Yes.
And then this also gives for export markets, for global trade, it gives the buyers much more confidence, right? That, okay, the way it's been handled, the way it's moved through the supply chain, there have been no compromises about the handling of the food.
Yes.
Right. And then blockchain can also help with reducing food waste, right? A significant portion of food is wasted, right? Which is particularly sad because you have a lot of people that still go to bed hungry. But inefficiencies in the supply chain, especially for maybe perishable goods,
Yes.
as the food moves along the supply chain,
Yes.
and then there's often a time lag. Things can be lost, things can be missed, such that by the time the food eventually gets to the consumer, right, it's not as healthy and nutritious as it ought to be. And sometimes the food is invariably wasted, right? So using blockchain in the supply chain to streamline operations will mitigate all of these instances of delays, right? Make the system more efficient and get food quicker to its intended recipients, right? So this would taken together, this would help in advancing food security. So blockchain is one of the key technologies, I believe, that can advance food security, which is people are able to access food in the right quality and in the right quantity, basically.
Yes.
Right. And then in the medical space, medical supply chain area, the core challenge has to do with counterfeit products, right, which is a significant problem in South Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa.
Yes.
Right. Lots of people consume medical drugs or supplies that are not up to standard, right? And then it has a lot of effect. So blockchain can help there to prevent counterfeit products, right? You have a lot of online pharmacies. You have so many things that people access some of these drugs without going through the right channels. So if you have a simplified system where you can easily check these products and you confirm the authenticity, then it's going to help the medical industry.
Yes.
Right. It's also going to help. Blockchain can also help in the area of medical records.
Yes.
Right. Our medical records are often disparate, right? In various regions, you go to the lab, you do a test, you see different doctors in different cities, and everybody's keeping your medical records.
Sure.
And perhaps you go somewhere else, there's an emergency, and nobody has access to your medical history. So blockchain can help in this area, giving power to an individual to have his medical records collated from different sources, right? And then the medical or the individual can also determine who he gives access to those records, right? That would help in the event, or you could stay now, okay, in the event of an emergency, my records should be made available, right, to individuals so that the emergency folks can, have access and offer treatment that would be suitable for the case. So, right, blockchain can also be very useful in that regard.
Yes.
Blockchain can also help in temperature control, right? Think about vaccines, right, that have to go to remote areas,
yes,
right? And then more often than not, people don't have confidence. Has the vaccine, has the medication been kept within
yes,
the right temperature range? Introducing the technology there
yes,
would again help, to give folks much more confidence in the vaccines and the medicines and the medical supplies that they access. So those are a few examples of the use of the technology in the agri-food
yes.
and in the medical supply domain.
And the technology does seem to have good prospects or positive prospects. But I'm sure you also have identified some key barriers in terms of implementing this technology. Can you kindly share to us maybe some of the anticipated or the key barriers that are there?
Okay, so blockchain is a very important technology, right?
Yes.
Like I said, it's a game changer. But what we have seen is that the key barrier, for blockchain to be effective,
yes,
folks have to buy into it, right? So you think about the agri-food supply chain. Yes. There are lots of players in that space. You have smallholder farmers, you have the aggregators, you have the middlemen, right?
Yes.
Everybody has to buy into the technology and commit to using the technology,
yes,
so that the consumer can actually access all of that information, right, when he or she buys something, right? So there's not been sufficient buy-in, right, by players in that space, right?
Yes.
So that's a significant problem.
Yes.
The technology exists. Of course, there are some challenges with the technology, and I'll get to that quite shortly.
Yes.
But that's a key issue. So, for instance, Walmart in the US
yes,
introduced blockchain technology for some of their products in 2016, 2017,
yes,
right? Till now, even in the US, there's not been a significant adoption of the technology because most of the players are a little bit hesitant, They're quite used to it being paper-based and all of that. And there's been some slowness in adopting the technology. So that's a very significant issue. And then our goal is to, in the South African context, lend our voice towards changing that, right? Encourage adoption, awareness, adoption, education about the technology. So it's very important that's done. And then from a technology perspective, there is need to also bring about a cost reduction, right? It's often quite expensive to develop and to deploy blockchain technology. And then for smallholder farmers or various players that need to be part of the supply chain, it's often expensive, and it often acts like a barrier preventing them from, leveraging the technology. So that's another key issue that should be looked in, like cost reduction, right? So such that the economies of scale can come in and people can, of course, use the technology more often. And then there's a third thing that has to do with the lack of standardization of the technology. So you have various blockchain platforms, you have various blockchain protocols, and then even in the same industry, you can have different players using various platforms, using various protocols. And there's often a lack of interoperability. So the consumer would perhaps need to install, an app for all the various providers, right? Which, in a sense, hinders adoption, right? So there's a need from a technical perspective to work towards standardization, right? To work towards interoperability of the various platforms and solutions out there that would have a knock-on effect on increasing adoption, right, of the technology.
In terms of also now, you spoke about the development of the technology itself. I'm interested in the career parts, which fields are particularly will be involved in the development. It sounds multidisciplinary from what I'm standing.
Yeah, no, it's a multidisciplinary technology, right? Like I mentioned, the technical aspect is there, but then there are other economic aspect, right? It's called like this the economics aspect is often referred to as tokenomics, right? The tokens that are used on the blockchain, right? How do you look at the cost metrics, the transaction cost, right? Transaction fees, and so many other aspects. So typically, you would need a blockchain developer, right? That would has expertise with the technology, the various platforms and protocols that are out there, right? And there are several, like I mentioned. So typically, someone that has a coding background, right, would be able to make that switch, right, to blockchain technology development, right? And then you would also have, like I said, the economics aspect, right? The financial aspect is also very important. Technology doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? So that's also very important to consider, right? And then you would also have other players, right, that can work towards increasing adoption, right? So typically, blockchain developers have the option of either working for corporates, or they can also, start out on their own, run a startup, and all of that. In a corporate, obviously, you might not need to wear so many hats, right? You can maybe just focus on development, and then somebody handles the economic aspect, and someone else handles maybe the adoption aspect, right? In a startup, you perhaps need to be more dexterous, right, and handle both of them or all three sort of simultaneously. So there are lots of career paths, right, and it's a fast-growing field. And we definitely need to capacitate more folks
in the space. And speaking on economic landscapes, South Africa and Switzerland have different economic landscapes. How do you plan on tailoring blockchain technology in meeting the specific needs and challenges of each country on this particular research, the bilateral?
Yes, that's a very good question. Like South Africa and Switzerland are not at the same level in terms of maybe development, right? So what we did, or what we're working on now, is the Swiss partners are focusing on the medical supply chain aspect, whilst we are focusing on the agri-food space. So that aids us because you have better knowledge of the operating environment, right? You're better able to contextualize your solutions to the problems that you have on ground. So we've done some work together. Then we have, of course, created a framework for our blockchain platform. Right. But then customizing it, like I said, to the various case study, South Africa and Switzerland, requires us to define various suppliers. It requires us to define various target markets, right? And then define various role players, right, within the supply chain. Right? The aim, either way, is to pioneer a technology that would be adopted, right, by either the on the South African side and also on the Swiss side. And then the technology should be one that should hopefully increase import and exports, right, because of the confidence that blockchain would impose on the consumers, because the system is obviously more transparent. So we have we have come up with a general framework, but then in terms of implementation of our platforms, each party takes the lead, because then you have better domain knowledge of the operating environment that you are working out from.
And how will this influence the global trade, be it in the perspective of businesses and consumers? How will it influence global trade in that regard?
So global trade is important, right? The goal of blockchain technology, like I said, is to improve transparency. If there's transparency in the supply chain, then consumer confidence increases. Right. So there's transparency. There's provenance in the supply chain. People can prove where some of these things emanated from. Then consumer confidence increases. And then it now having this sort of system is almost like a quality control mechanism. Right. That opens up some of these products to a much more wider or global market, right?
Yes.
It aids in, it increases the markets available for the products to be exported to because consumer confidence has increased. So blockchain would bring about transparency,
Yes.
and then that would have the knock-on effect of increasing consumer confidence. And then once there's consumer confidence in the product across geographical distances, across various nations,
Yes.
then trade would definitely increase, and then income will be generated. So that's my view of how blockchain the technology can lead, right, towards increased consumer confidence and then more income generation.
Yes. Yeah. Are there existing examples or case studies of the implementation of the technology?
Well, yes, there are. Yes. Like I didn't mention the Walmart example.
Oh, yes, true. 2016.
In the US.
Yes.
And then we have a couple of implementations in the agri-food space in South Africa. We have Beef Ledger SA, that basically focuses on using blockchain to track beef products from the livestock, and then it goes, throughout the process to the abattoir, and then of course to the various distribution channels.
Yes.
You also have Footprint SA, which is another blockchain platform, another blockchain service that also is used in getting products from smallholder farmers and then exposing them to a wider market, right, for them to be able to sell their products. I believe it was built on the Algorand blockchain, right? And then there is also eFarmer, right, if I'm not mistaken, by another company in Johannesburg, right? And then I think it was also built on the Near blockchain. Again, it's also in the space to onboard farmers and then introduce transparency such that people can see the provenance of the food that they get. So there you have a couple of instances in South Africa, like I mentioned. In the medical space, there's a company that I know it's called Check It, right? And then it's quite popular in sub-Saharan Africa, right? Basically, it's used to mitigate instances of counterfeit drugs, right? So with Check It as an app, you're able to verify that any drug, any medical supply in your hand is actually original, right? And it actually comes from the right manufacturer, right? So there are a couple of instances. Well, like I think I need to state that we need more, right? And time would definitely reveal more business models, right, that will arise that can deploy the technology in various aspects, right? So I think that's important to note. Yeah.
And sticking on as time goes, how do you envision the future of blockchain technology in the context of global supply chain management?
In the future, I expect there to be technological advances. I mentioned the issue of standardization, right? There's need for improved standardization, right? So that interoperability is enhanced, right? There is need for improved regulations, right? Especially across various jurisdictions, right? There must be some form of uniform requirements about or laws, right, or standards from a compliance perspective, right, about what should be on the blockchain, what is required, where can it be used, right? What for privacy, right? What rights does the consumer have? How much power does the consumer have over some of this information? So all of those things have to be clearly, defined, right? But taken together, my view is still piggybacks to what I said before. The technology would introduce transparency, right? And then that transparency would have a knock-on effect of increased consumer confidence, right? Which should spur trade, right? Which should spur trade, facilitate trade, open up access to previously inaccessible markets, right? And then just foster trade. So our thinking is now that when we are when we were able to deploy the technology, right,
Yeah.
it should be able to give, for instance, smallholder farmers that perhaps in the informal sector, they can be onboarded.
Yes.
Quality control can be performed on their products, right?
Yes.
And then they're able to access markets either in the urban areas or in the export market that they would not have been able to access hitherto.
Interesting. And I know this may be a stretch from my side, but
Yeah.
what do you hope would be the contribution of your research chair in the next coming years?
Okay, so
I know. Stretched it.
we just started this year.
Yes.
But we expect to be able to release the product very soon,
Yes.
right? Earlier this year, we're almost done, right? And basically, we want to, it's a proof of concept with our Swiss partners, basically to see how we can deploy blockchain technology
Yes.
in with certain participants that have indicated interest to work with us.
Yes.
All right. The aim is to use the technology and to identify products or to mitigate food waste, such that before foodstuffs get to their expiry date,
Yes.
right? People can access that information and can gain access to it, so that we mitigate instances of food insecurity, especially amongst the urban area, amongst folks in the urban areas, which is a significant problem. So we're busy finalizing that, right? And so we should be able to announce that very early next year.
Yes.
But then there are other initiatives, like I mentioned, based on our core mandate, right? We're also conducting research in the blockchain space. What are the hiccups, or what prevents people more from adopting the technology, identifying some of those hindrances, and then proffering remedial actions, right? And we're also involved in capacity building, right? And we had a boot camp last month, which was very well attended.
Yes.
I mean, at very short notice, it was oversubscribed, right?
Oh, wow.
So we
Impressive.
we want to do more,
Yes.
right? So that those that did well in the first session would learn something a bit more advanced, and then we also have people that come in that will also begin from the scratch. So we also want to take that a bit further.
Yes.
And then, of course, we're also continuing with our awareness, technology adoption awareness and sensitization, right? Holding seminars, webinars, events, right, to preach the gospel of blockchain a bit more.
Yes.
Right. So yeah, just increase activity in the new year, in the years to come, right?
Yes.
Hopefully, the area of product development is very key.
Yes.
We want to also contribute our quota to mitigate instances of youth unemployment.
Yes.
So there is no reason why our students should not be able to come up with blockchain products, right? Should not be able to launch startups, right? And then we've identified, there's been a lot of interest, right? And we are working towards that. So I'm confident that in the next couple of years, you will definitely see not one, but several startups from our stables. Yeah.
And one of the first steps to that should be tomorrow's event.
Yes.
Of course, can you tell us more about the event that you are holding?
Okay, so tomorrow's event is titled Mainstreaming Blockchain, right? It's holding tomorrow, the 24th of October.
Yes.
Right, and then the goal is to cast a vision, right? It's our first event.
Yeah.
So we basically want to cast a vision for the audience, right? So that they're able to appreciate the transformative potential of blockchain technology, right? Essentially to open their eyes to see, okay, this is what the technology is all about, right? This is what it can do for you, right? And then we're going to be doing this by having success stories. So we have a very impressive lineup. Most of the key or prominent thought leaders in the blockchain space would be there, and then they're going to pinpoint some of the success stories where blockchain has been deployed, right, in South and Sub-Saharan Africa, in South Africa, in Kenya, in Nigeria, right. Some of the examples will be detailed at tomorrow's event, and then people are going to be able to see, okay, from these success stories, what can I learn? What lessons can I imbibe in my operations? Right. And then we're also going to provide a pathway. Our speakers are also going to provide a pathway where we see blockchain going in the next couple of years. What regulatory changes are required, right, in South and Sub-Saharan Africa that would increase the adoption of the technology. So basically, the aim is to contribute our quota towards mainstreaming the technology. So that's why the event is called Mainstreaming Blockchain. Then, the participants, our vision, our goal would be that at the end of the day, participants are able to see from the success stories, from the vision that is cast there, how they can implement the technology in their own operations. So that's the essence of tomorrow's event. It starts at 9 up until 4. Of course, it's going to have demonstrations, identity wallets from leading players in South Africa. It's going to have several demonstrations. It's going to have a panel session from big corporates and also from startups. And then it's also going to have a keynote and guest lectures from distinguished thought leaders in the space.
How can people get there, and where's the location?
The location is at the School of Tourism and Hospitality, conference room 1 and 2, right? It's also going to be streamed on UJ's social media platforms, right? On Facebook and YouTube, I believe. Right. So for those that cannot be there physically, because the room can only seat 80, 100 people, right? You have the opportunity to be part of it on social media and follow the conversations, right? I think people will be able to, basically at this time, people can only just join online, can stream on UJ's social media platforms.
Awesome. And in closing, any last remarks?
My closing remarks would be that the technology is here to stay, right? As with all other 4R technologies, right? We should just leverage on the technology, right? To solve the pain points in our supply chain as a nation, right? To enhance the provenance of products in the agri-food and the medical supply chain, right? We should also strive to upskill more people in the technology, and that's also something we take seriously. So people can reach out to us, should follow us on our web pages, right, to get information about our various upskilling courses that will be coming up very frequently, right? Can also follow us to also learn more about the events we will be organizing. And yes, just join us as we propagate the gospel of blockchain.
Gospel evangelism.
Yes, exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Prof. Nwulu. I think my understanding of blockchain is broad now.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
I'm very grateful.
Okay. Well, there you have it, dear viewers. This was our conversation with Prof. Nwulu. Make your mark. See you on the next episode.
The University of Johannesburg, the future reimagined.